Paul Mauro here. Smart Financial Lifestyles. Welcome back. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, just hit the little button there below. Get our newsletter and keep up with where we're doing our online webinars and educational things about both books, Smart Financial Grandparenting and Smart Financial Longevity, which is out now. So I want to talk about a little bedtime story. And sometimes bedtime stories can be wonderful, or they can turn into a night of nightmares. So let's just use this term, sequence of returns. What is it? Let's talk about what it is and how it can turn your bedtime story from a sweet dream into a nightmare. You get to retirement and you got $1 million, and you know you're going to put that money into something, and you're going to take out 4% a year, and you're going to read all the financial books, and they say it's all smart to take 4%, and that's going to work nifty, and you get $40,000 a year, and that's retirement, and that's your dream for retirement. And that plus your Social Security pays all your bills, and you have a wonderful time, and you go on all-inclusive vacations and cruises, and you have a great time. Okay, with today's longevity, if you retire, it's highly likely you're going to be retired for 20 years. In fact, some of you are going to be retired for 30 years. Based on the research done by the Stanford study on longevity, it's highly likely that if you're 50 years old, you could live to 90. So if you stop working at 60, it's like 30 years of retirement. So let's talk about this 4% rule, which sounds a little bit like a fairy tale. It's it's a sweet bedtime story. You can have sweet dreams about it, and you're going to have this money. It's going to last forever. It's going to go up a little bit of inflation. That all sounds great. Here's the difference. It's the sequence of returns. There is no such thing as the average rate of return in the stock market. People say over the last 40 years, yes, it's earned about 9% in the market. That's great. An average actually sounds great in the charts. But remember, when you look at these financial charts, right, that's not reality. Right? You don't live in financial charts, right? You take the money that's in your retirement fund and you turn that into time at the beach. You take money that's in your retirement fund and you turn that into your vacation. So you actually need cash that you can convert in things. There is no average price of a cruise over 20 years that you can pay, right? You're paying the real price in the year that you take it. And that's the difference between averages and sequence of returns. So the sequence of returns is this. Forget all the average numbers. If you sail into retirement in your little boat with $1 million in it, and you get the exact same 5% interest rate every single year, everything is going to work out great. But here's what really happens. In the sequence of returns, you could have a couple of bad years. Over 20 years, it's highly likely you're going to have 4 bad years. In fact, that's the history of the market. About every 7 years, we have a correction. If you've been around in 2008, if you're around in 2000, you know how this works. It's easy to see 50% of your money disappear. So it's when that sequence occurs. So for your retirement planning, this is going to be a big topic. It's called sequence of return nightmare. So if you have the same return every year and you collect your 4%, it's going to be living happily ever after. You're going to be like something out of a Disney, cartoon. It's going to be all smiles and flowers. It's going to be great. However, if you happen to encounter 4 bad years early in your retirement picture, what can happen is by the 20th year, you're out of money. In fact, here's the actual numbers. If you have 4 bad years in the market, and I'm, by the way, not calling a 50% return, I am saying 4 bad years that are just negative, -6, -8, -3. 4 negative years in the beginning of your retirement means that by the 20th year, taking out 4%, you'll be out of money. You'll be out of money, and there is no AAA to call when you're 80 years old, right? And your car runs out of gas, right? There's no AAA for retirement. So if you are in the terrible nightmare position of retiring, and then we have 4 bad years in a row, you will end up at 0 in about 20 years. If you happen to have, a 5% return every year, you're going to end up with $1 million in the beginning and $1 million in the end. That's great, right? That's the happily ever after story. If you have 4 bad years at the end of your retirement, it's not so terrible. Actually, if you live from 60 to about 76 years old, and then you have 4 bad years in a row, minor negative years, you will still end up with about $800,000 left in your portfolio, and you'll be able to continue retirement, or you could leave some money to your family. 4 bad years at the end, not so terrible. 4 bad years in the beginning, turns your retirement fantasy into a nightmare. So how do you lick the sequence of returns? This is really important. And by the way, we have a 5-point action item. Fix it. It's part of what's in Smart Financial Grandparenting and Smart Financial Longevity. If you're going to be retired 30 years, right, and a portion of your portfolio is stocks and a portion is bonds, 50-50, which is a common balanced allocation, right, and you're using a financial advisor, you need to ask your advisor, if you're buying bonds for 30 years, why in the world would you risk that bond going negative? Because if interest rates go up, bonds go down in value. There's actually an article right now about how negative bonds are and how they've taken a hit. On top of that, why would you pay a management fee on a bond you're going to own 30 years? It makes no sense. So instead, you can replace the bond portfolio with something that's 100% guaranteed, usually from an insurance company, that will guarantee your 4% payout forever, that will not be subject to interest rate fluctuations, and you won't pay any management fee. So, number one, when you're doing your retirement planning, the number one rule is look at the bond position as a risky position and something you should replace with something that's guaranteed. Number two, rather than paying 1% on your $1 million portfolio over all those years, pay 1% for great equity management. And I'm a believer in that. Pay that 1% on the equity portion, but not on the whole portion, and save yourself, are you ready? About $150,000 in fees in your retirement. I mean, that will be a lot you can hand down to your grandchildren. You know, we're very, very pro on grandparents and reaching their grandchildren, and this is a way for you to get more money from you to your grandkids by doing smart financial planning, okay? Number one rule is don't forget the sequence of returns. It could be a nightmare. Number two, take action to fix it. And number three, fix it in a way that saves you fees over your lifetime. So reach out to us. Go ahead and, hit us up with a question online. Send us an email. If you want to be put in contact with one of the folks that are associated with Smart Financial Lifestyles, we can do that. And I'm Paul Mauro, and I'll see you again next time on Smart Financial. This is just the art of being smart.